says we're now streaming.
Okay. I don't know why we were getting the background noise. So I think we are back. Sorry about that, everybody. Does that sound okay, Miranda?
Yeah, I can hear you. Absolutely.
Sorry, I think I might have pressed the wrong thing there. So I think we've done our introductions, but let's start to talk about. So Miranda, let's talk about you first of all, if that's okay, in terms of you have another role and then you've been a celebrant for the last decade. Is there anything you kind of want to start to sort of kickstart with, just in terms of maybe challenges that you've had to overcome in the years?
Yeah, I mean, there's challenges whilst you're still studying, and then there are challenges that come after you have finished studying and you're setting up your business. For me, AMC didn't exist when we trained, and so I went on a residential training, and so I think for those people who are studying through AMC, it's a slightly different kettle of fish. And I think more of the tactics that I put in place after I'd finished studying would help someone who is studying as well, because it's a longer term training when you're doing it in the way that we do it with AMC. I think part of one of the biggest things that has really helped me over the years while I was studying and getting set up initially was setting some realistic goals for myself, thinking about realistically, how much time do I have to invest in this in terms of starting the business whilst I'm still studying and I'm still working, and everything else that goes on with just living our lives. And everyone is going to set goals and different goals for themselves. So being realistic about what time you've got and how you're going to use that wisely, and creating a plan for yourself and then working that plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say. And then I'd say a couple of other things. I think when we come into the world of celebrancy, we sometimes, I certainly did, had rose tinted glasses and thought, oh great, I finished my training, bring on the bookings, without realizing I had to go out there to get the bookings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what takes the hard work. And that's what I mean about kind of starting your business and setting those realistic goals when you get started. And that is still something that I find I have to do all the time. And when I say goal setting, I set goals for myself at the beginning of the year, but then I set goals for myself every month, every week. And I've learned over the years to be far more realistic about what I can and can't do. And that's really helped along the way.
Yeah, I know, I agree with you. And I think that's something that I come from a sort of a sales and recruitment background. So for me, daily planning, execution of that plan was really important. So even if you only ticked 4 out of the 8 things on your sort of goal list or your list that day, you could roll them over to the next day. And then one of the things, so that's something that's always kind of been in my DNA and has worked really well for me. But one thing that I learned from doing Jennifer's accelerators course was to get a whiteboard, to have in the office, and then you can kind of block out your monthly, quarterly, 6th month and your 12-year goals and break it back down from there as well. And I think that's a really useful thing to do. And don't give yourself a hard time if you don't achieve everything. I think if you put sort of 100 things on your list to achieve in the week, it's not achievable, especially if you have another role as well. But as you said, realistic goal setting, and then you feel really motivated, don't you, in terms of what you've achieved?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's about being realistic with yourself, not necessarily realistic with others. And I say that because I think we see what others are doing and we think that we can achieve those goals straight away. And you're not me, I'm not you. We all do things differently. And goals, you know, in terms of setting up a website or how many bookings you want are going to be different for each person. And so I say that to say, don't compare yourself with others. That's the worst thing you can do. So setting realistic goals means goals for yourself, not goals that you've seen others do and that are completely unachievable half the time.
Absolutely. And I think I was talking to you earlier before we dived onto this call. So I've got some really good celebrant buddies based down in Bristol. One works full time, another one works 4 days a week, and they have a goal of how many ceremonies they want to conduct a year. So one does sort of 8 a year, another does 20 a year. So again, I think the point that Miranda is making is a really important one, is that it's important not to compare yourself to other people. It's hard not to do it, especially when you see someone really busy on Instagram, etc. And everybody has different things. So when people also say I'm fully booked, but what does that mean? It means, okay, they only want to conduct 10 ceremonies a year. So that's just a sort of side note that I think links in really well as well. So I think it's good to kind of keep focused on what you want to achieve in terms of maybe what you want to earn financially, and then you translate that into how many ceremonies, and then you build that back in terms of the building blocks that you're going to do in terms of creating your business going forward.
Yeah, and I think too, Tara, there are some people, a lot of people who come into the profession while still working another job. And there are others like me who come into the profession and continue to work another job. I'm only just starting to think about in terms of my long-term plan of kind of scaling back my other business, which I still love, but I feel like my priorities have changed, and kind of doing more in the way of celebrancy in the future. But that's a longer term goal, and I have to start thinking about planning for that goal now. And there are going to be some celebrants who continue to stay in other positions while still doing their celebrancy work. And there are others who are going to think, well, how do my goals change and evolve as I scale back other work? When do I want to do that? How does that happen? All of that.
Yeah.
So that takes time.
Really good points. And I think there's something else that we was on our agenda this evening, was time blocking. And that's something that Jennifer talks about a lot. And I think time blocking is a really important piece, especially if you have another role that's maybe part-time, full-time. You've got a busy home and family life as well, that you actually say, right, Wednesday mornings or Friday afternoons, this is my time, and you stick to that, and you remove the procrastination, and you make sure you've got your goals in place to do what you need to do. So I think that's a really important one to mention as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for while you're studying as well. I always say this to mentees when they're getting set up: time block. What I do, because obviously people have access to my diary to book their mentoring calls or to book discovery calls with me, and then my other business has the same access. So I literally block out time in my diary a month in advance, so people know when I'm available and when I'm not. And that really helps. And I actually have to time block time for me to work on stuff. So I time block, okay, I'm going to work this hour on reviewing scripts, this hour on website upgrades, or writing a blog, or writing a script, whatever it is. And I literally, it's either in hour-long blocks or 30-minute blocks for me in my calendar, and they're non-negotiable, because otherwise you're just not going to get stuff done.
Absolutely. No, it's a really good point, Miranda. And do you have any specific tools that you use in terms of time blocking, in terms of sort of technology, because obviously we all use Calendly, not Google Calendar. Is there any sort of top tips you'd share?
I use Calendly, but I also, it transfers into my Google Calendar. So literally I go through my Google Calendar and block out the time, and I use different color coding. So I have one color for a real ceremony, one for an AMC mentee, one for my coaching work, and then another for me to work on either my Celebrant business or my other business. So it's also important to figure out when you're running your own business, how much time you're going to invest in working on the business rather than in the business. And something that we've always said, that people always say in business, if you're growing your own business, is you should be spending, I think it's something like 80% of your time working on the business. That means marketing, all of that, getting out there, building the business, or doing what we talk about in the field that I work in, which is sprints. And that's another thing that I found really helpful. So a sprint to work on a particular project. So you should be working on the business, and working in the business to me is the actual client-facing stuff that we do with our couples and families.
Yeah, that's brilliant. No, that's fantastic. And we've had a couple of other points about sort of work-life balance and getting support. Is there anything you'd want to share just in terms of your own experience?
have a really fantastic spouse. So yeah, I
That's
have
it.
a very long-suffering spouse who proofreads all my scripts for me. He's amazing. Obviously we don't have children, so it's slightly easier in some respects, but have a support network around you that makes sure that you do take that time for yourself, and to be present at home. Again, I time block. I can't, sometimes when it's really busy, like it has been the last couple of months, I have to time block my family time. But
Yes.
you need to do that in order to make sure that you can juggle all those different projects that you've got going on and still be present for your family. And also think about, what is it that you need to do to fill your cup so that you are able to continue to do what you want to do, whether it's going for a walk or going to the gym or having a swim or going to the pub, reading a book, whatever it is, whatever you need to kind of be in tip-top condition and also relax.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for you, it's the Peloton,
You can
probably.
see it in the background. Yeah, sometimes I move my camera around a bit. My Peloton, I love my Peloton. So yeah, absolutely. But it is, and I think it's I think when you are starting your business, and I say this to people that I mentor, and we had a chat about this earlier on, we're doing everything, and it is hard work because you've got marketing to think about and going out to see venues and getting your SEO working and all those things. So I think that time blocking, that organization, but having that space and then having someone to support you in that as well is really important. So yeah, and we talked about here about finding inspiration. What kind of inspires you, Miranda, just in terms of being organized and getting all your ducks in a row as such?
Well, first of all, definitely the time. I keep saying this over and over again, but it is the time blocking. That's kind of key for me.
Yeah.
Also setting healthy boundaries. So that means for me setting healthy boundaries around what my availability is, for everyone that I work with. That goes for all the businesses, and being very clear with everyone. So I know for some people who are just moving into celebrancy and maybe still working another job or business and thinking about whether they want to take this on full time or not, you might have to be in a conversation with your employer, or you may not feel comfortable about being in a conversation with your employer. For me, I have always been really clear with my other team that I work with, about when I'm available and when I'm not. And prior to COVID, I was traveling a lot for my other job. And so it worked for me in terms of celebrancy because couples book you for weddings months, years in advance, a lot of the time. So that worked for me. But I've had to be really, really clear. In fact, I was just in a conversation earlier this evening about some work overseas next November, and I'd already got bookings for next November. And so we had to look at, okay, we'll just have to block out the rest of November next year for this other project.
Yeah.
But just being really clear with everyone around you and keeping those lines of communication open. And if you can't communicate with your employers about when your availability is and have an adult conversation about that for one reason or another, just be clear with yourself about what you can manage and what your availability to work on your business is going to be. Is it going to be at weekends? Is it how much of a weekend so that you can also still have family time? Is that going to be? And realistically, if your time is limited, how do you use the time effectively? Again, something like time blocking, but also B, knowing that you have limited time, how much time are you going to need to cover each task that you've got to do?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. And I think there's some valid points that you've made there, Miranda, about transparency. And there may be some people who are starting their journey that don't want their employer to know,
Exactly.
and they build this up, alongside and then scale one back as well. But there are equally, as I said, there's people that I know that run both roles concurrently. And also I suppose it depends on the space that you're working, whether it may be you're a wedding celebrant or a funeral celebrant, and obviously, or you're doing a blended mix and you have to maybe be more reactive or more available. If you're booked for a funeral in say 2-3 weeks time, you have to take a day off. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a balancing out there as well. So I think being organized and having that time blocking, we keep saying that word, but it's really important. We all lead busy and fast-paced lives, and life has kicked into being busy again, hasn't it, after the pandemic?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
getting it all in.
And I don't know about you, but I'm a bit of a personal development junkie. So I look at what others are doing in terms of how they're managing their businesses, what they're doing to kind of find balance and take inspiration from that. So I watch a lot of videos with a lot of crazy Americans, but doing a lot of personal development stuff. But people like Marie Forleo I have found really helpful, and Brené Brown. I mean, in my work as a coach, I use them anyway, but I've always found that those kind of personal development, not so much gurus, but authors and coaches have been really helpful, and you pick up nuggets of gold that you can use.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
So what about you, Tara? Where do you find your inspiration from then?
Well, I think I'm a very competitive person, which people may or not have worked out about me. And so I'm always kind of, but I've also learned now to kind of like keep focused on my daily plans, my weekly plans, my monthly plans, and just keep it focused on that and not get too distracted maybe by what other people are doing as well. But for me, I'm very diligent just in terms of translating that and getting that done on a regular basis. And I think when I started my business, I trained in 2019, I had one wedding in 2020, and I'm going to finish this year on 42 weddings. But it's been a lot of hard work. It's been amazing. I need a little bit of a lie down. But you also have to be very organized when you've got that volume, and a lot of energy goes in, as you know, Miranda, to our ceremonies. Our ceremonies are bespoke and tailored. So we were talking earlier about, actually, I've had a few months this year where it's been a little bit crazy back to back, and sort of 3, 4 in a week, and there's been a couple of days where I've done 2 in a day. And that's certainly possible. So I think I'm looking realistically next year about just spacing things out a little bit more, just so it's not so frenetic, because I don't want to lose my energy or my enthusiasm as well.
You just said it there, energy and enthusiasm. I think for me, I found this year there were several months when I was just doing back to back and on top of everything else, and I just found myself in the last few weeks thinking, I'm not going to do as many next year, because I don't, like you, I don't want to lose that energy or enthusiasm, because I think one thing that really separates us from everyone else doing weddings is that as celebrants, we are really enthusiastic and we put our all into everything, but you have to balance that. So yeah, I love that.
Yes, absolutely. And I've made a couple of other notes, but we were sort of talking about sort of support network. Anybody who is studying or has studied with the Academy, you're part of the amazing AMC student Facebook group. It's a really active group. We celebrate so much on there, but share if you've got challenges or ideas, because we really work as a family and we really want to support each other when you're out there, and we want everyone to be hugely successful. So I think sharing top tips is really important. And we talked briefly earlier as well about maybe sort of having an accountability buddy. So maybe you have completed your course, and I do see lots of posts cropping up where people are joining WhatsApp groups. So if you're struggling with your time blocking or you're not getting things done, reach out to somebody and say, look, can we have a check-in once a week or once a fortnight, and set me a few goals, and then you've got something to work towards. I think that's quite a nice little top tip there as well.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, I know in my local area, occasionally I get together for coffee with fellow celebrants, or as a group or one-to-one, and that has really, really helped. And then we're supporting each other on WhatsApp throughout the year, and it's been really, really helpful for me, certainly, to have a group of AMC graduates and students nearby to help with bookings as well. So I always say, get to know others in your local area, not only for accountability with studying and also setting up your business, but also you never know where those conversations will lead. So
really, really important. Exactly. I had a call last year. My friend Deb, who's a celebrant in Bristol, she had COVID and she was hoping she was going to test clear, but she didn't. So, we had a 5-day dialogue, and she sent me her script about 3 days before, and I stood in for her. So I think, as Miranda said, you need that support network around you to help you on your journey, but also if you're poorly or if you need someone to stand in for you as well. So I think that's a really valid point. And you made a point here earlier as well, Miranda, and then we'll maybe have us look at some questions in a moment. moment, is about being clear about your process with couples and families. I think that's a really important point. Do you want to sort of say a few
Yeah.
words about that?
Yeah. So when couples work with me, I say to them they get unlimited support. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be at their beck and call 24 hours a day. So after they've booked me, I'll do a setup call with them just to make sure that they understand the process. And I actually send my couples a booklet that just takes them through the rest of the process from start to end of ceremony or the confetti shot, so that they know exactly, what kind of they're going to go through, and the timings for it, so they know how much time they need to allocate, because wedding planning is a busy business, and I know how much time I need to allocate to them. So yes, they can get unlimited support, but I'm clear about when my availability is and how much time in advance of their wedding I need to be able to write their ceremony so that they can plan effectively. So for instance, I'm just looking at my plan for next year. I have a whiteboard with my plan up and all my bookings over here. So my first wedding is in April, and I'm actually meeting with the couple in 2 weeks' time to start their process. I tend to be one of these people that wants to get stuff done well in advance.
And I've taken that top tip from you, Miranda. Actually, I've just written my first script for 2024, because when it gets really lumpy and busy, you need to be ahead of the curve, don't you? And I'm on that, because normally last year I left it till January, and I think you will find that you'll have couples that are super organized, and there's some that you are chasing that information, and that's always going to happen. So with the ones that are super organized, get them done and licked and signed off, and then the ones that you're chasing hopefully is just a handful, so it's not so pressured at the end and you're thinking, I'm running out of time to do this.
Exactly. And I also, I know that I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks at Christmas, and I can start writing, and I know where my kind of writing nook is while I'm away, and I can do all of that. So I kind of think about where I need to be to write stuff, because I need to be in the right space, and block that time too. So I'm also very clear with couples that if they don't get, and I do it in a nice way, I don't kind of tell them off to school teacher style, but I do say from the get-go, please make sure that you can get stuff back to me by such and such a date. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to give you the ceremony that you deserve. And that tends to work. If I don't say anything, that's when things slip off the rails. So you just being clearer and communicating with your couples makes a huge difference.
Definitely. One of the, I mean, it's a slightly side line to that, but the one time I didn't meet a couple to go through their questionnaire was when I had the most changes. So that's part of my process now. I have to meet them to go through that, because then it's just going to save you time as well. Otherwise, you're just going backwards and forwards. So I think putting these systems and processes in place, and you'll learn these on your Celebrant journey, everyone, just in terms of there's things that you change as you go through sort of the months and the years, and then your processes and those systems will become slicker, and you'll become faster at writing and faster at sort of getting the information that you need as well. So
you don't know until you try. And I learned, especially in the early few years, I learned through a lot of trying. And actually, one of my coaches has always said, failure or hardship is your greatest learning moment. You learn the most. And we always say in business, if people are going to fail, you want them to fail fast, so that they have that learning from it and learn by doing. And that's definitely been the case for me. So otherwise, if I didn't try stuff, I'd never know whether it worked or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think by both our, I mean, this is my sort of fourth full year. Miranda, you being a celebrant for 10 years. I think we continue to learn, don't we? This is a job which evolves, and you sort of embrace modern technologies, new ideas, you get inspired by other celebrants. So, it's good to keep those communication lines open and look at what other people are doing as well.
Definitely. And I think part of it too is, for me, when I first started, the Academy and Jen didn't exist. Jen hadn't started her kind of accelerator program, and I had to figure a lot of stuff out for myself. And although I came from a business development and marketing and events management background, I'd had a very broad career. I looked at what transferable skills I could bring to bear. But I had to go and figure a lot of stuff out. And then when I got connected to Jen, that's when things really accelerated for me. And I think partly because her work gave me the confidence to realize that I had been doing a lot of things right, but also there were other things I could tweak, and things like my website. Jen rebuilt my website for me 18 months ago, and my business has just gone since then. 2 years, it's 2 years now, I think. So it does make a massive difference. And I think, you know, take all of the inspiration and support that you can from AMC and Jen's work after that, because it does make a massive difference to have that community and that expert support.
Definitely. Oh, amazing, Miranda.
Yeah, and she did your website as well, didn't she?
Yes, that was one of the first things. So I attended Jennifer's accelerators, and then I was like, I just made a decision, because I'm a technophobe, as everyone has probably realized, because I fluffed things up earlier on, but I just said, right, I had a little resource to go at my website and all those things to get me sort of up and running. And I love my website. I get loads of comments about my website all the time. It's really, really super slick. So yeah,
it does make a difference. Learn from others as well. And that's again why the networking with fellow celebrants and also other wedding suppliers is so important.
Absolutely. Miranda, can you see, we'll have to have a couple more minutes, but I don't want to touch anything. Can you see any questions that have come through on the feed at all?
I can't even get in there right now, so I'm just looking. Let me look on my phone.
Okay. So I think a few people have commented on the group, because this has gone into the page, so it might have to be restreamed.
Here we go.
We've got, I can see there's 23 people watching us, so hopefully some people have
I'm not seeing any questions, but
no.
I'm not seeing any questions, except Jen saying well done, ladies.
Okay, perfect. Well, my understanding is that this will be restreamed in a way, because it's being recorded. So hopefully then when that's done, if anybody's got any questions, they can pop them onto the group as well. So but I think that it's gone into the page rather than a group, so that might be part of the issue there as well. So we had a few technical things earlier on. So perfect. So I think one of the key things that we've talked about, one of the top tips, that if you're going to take anything away from this, is time block. Make sure you've got some time in your calendar to do the things that you need to do. Is there anything else that you'd add to that, Miranda? We've sort of talked quite loosely around lots of areas of
it kind of goes into the bit of marketing, but it's also being clear about your time. And I know you've done this too, Tara. One of the ways that I built my business was through connecting with venues, and I still do. That's one of the main ways I build my business. And you're not just going and meeting a venue one and done, you're cultivating those relationships every year. So I found initially that took quite a bit of my time, and also when you're working a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job whilst trying to do that, it can be challenging. So I kind of negotiated with my employer to have Fridays afternoons to work, Friday mornings actually now, to kind of work on that kind of stuff. And I thought initially, I can do 3 visits in a day. No, it's one. So I plan all of that out during the winter season, and that's been a huge thing for me. But it's also great because you get out there, you start meeting other suppliers, and the networking does take time, but it's so key and something that you really have to do. It's not something that you can avoid if you're not one of these people that likes going networking. I've had to learn to really like it, but I love it now.
Yeah, and it's crucial. That's how I built my business. The year before last, I went out and visited 30 venues.
Mm.
And as soon as I get a booking for a new venue, even if it's a year or 2 years' time, I'll visit them immediately, because you might get business from it as well. So that's yeah, the time blocking for that's important.
Me
So
too. Yeah, absolutely. So you just, again, think about how much time things are going to take, because they usually take a lot longer than you think. um, and
yeah.
being realistic about that.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Well, I think we'll probably wrap it up now, Miranda, because I
Great.
think things have gone into another group. So please reach out to us, because we're both on the we're on the AMC Facebook group, the student group. So if there's any questions from tonight, we can dive in and have a look and see if anybody's posted anything else. But this has been obviously live streamed, it's been recorded, so it will be available for replay as well. But thank you so
Yeah,
much, Miranda. So nice to sit
not
and
at all.
chat.
You too. Thanks so
Take
much,
care.
everyone. Thanks, Tara.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.